Good Friday afternoon, and welcome into Grant and Danny on a football Friday for this next hour and a half on the Fan. We will be giving away tickets to the HF Festival tomorrow at Nationals Park, right at 6 o'clock. And we've got tickets to the Caps 50 Fest. We'll give those away when we say goodbye just before 6:30. Danny, how are you?
We're doing well, my friend. We're going to pack 4.5 hours worth of stuff in about 90 minutes. We'll do our best. Some stuff might not make the cut, but we'll do our darndest here. We'll endeavor to persevere.
We're like starting pitchers who normally get 5 or 6 minutes and 100 innings, I should say, and 100 pitches. And we're going to jam it into one frame and just throw gas. We're going to red
max effort all-star game style.
98 miles an hour with nasty slide pieces. We're going to try to make it work on Grant and Danny.
Nothing
today.
But spicy takes for me for the next 5 minutes. Like that, a whole show's worth now.
Why don't we start with Cameron Taylor-Britt of the Cincinnati Bengals? He's becoming a bit of a heel. This is a young defensive back. He's very talented. But Cameron Taylor-Britt, who had a monster interception this past week against the Chiefs, I'm sure you've seen the highlight of the play. It was a one-handed grab along the sideline. Last week, he was going up against rookie receiver Xavier Worthy. And he was asked about him going into the game, and he said, well, he could just run straight. He's fast. He doesn't run routes. I'm not particularly impressed. I was like, you don't really need to say that, but okay, I guess, if you want to challenge him after he's coming off 2 touchdowns. And in the game, Xavier Worthy had 2 catches for sub 30 yards, and Cameron Taylor-Britt had an interception. So he backed up the check that his mouth wrote, so to speak. I guess he wanted to make it 2 straight weeks, because yesterday in the locker room, when addressing the Commanders, he said they run a college offense, said he's not particularly scared of Jaden Daniels going down the field. Here's more of what Cameron Taylor-Britt had to say about the Washington Commanders.
Yeah, Capone, they don't make them do a lot, so they keep it really simple for them. Nice college offense, Kingsbury, the OC, so a little more guys around here and there, but just keep it real simple for them. I heard his pass percentage is very high, but he's only going short route, some intermediate stuff, quick throws.
So the cliff notes of what he just said there, because it's loud in the locker room. These are direct quotes. They don't make him do a lot. They keep it really simple for him. They run a college offense. He reiterates, they keep it really simple. I heard he had a high pass percentage, but it's just short, quick throws. Now, nothing that he said in and of itself statistically can be argued necessarily, but it's still, I would say, that there is a pejorative when you say that the NFL team is running a college offense, which we talk about this on the show. The offenses on Saturday and Sunday are blending together. It used to be years ago that you didn't see teams running spread and 11 personnel and empty and throwing the ball at the line of scrimmage a ton. But what you see all weekend on Saturday in the college game is now becoming more and more prevalent in the NFL game. And there's some truth to, it's a very sideways passing offense because the quarterback's running and they're doing some RPO type stuff. It is college-y, gimmicky, if you want to call it that. I don't think people should take offense because it isn't really a pejorative. I know it's like game manager. Oh, you're saying I manage the game well? You jerk. How dare you say that? That's kind of what this is to me. They are running an offense. So was 2012 when Washington was number 1 in yards per play, by the way, that you see more on Saturdays than Sundays so far. And to that I say, good, smart. Cliff Kingsbury's getting his young quarterback comfortable in a way that's allowing him to protect the football and to get off to a decent start. Maybe the Bears should take a page out of his book. Maybe the Broncos should do more of the things that Cliff Kingsbury's doing, because those 2 young guys making the transition haven't done so as smoothly with their more pro-style offense, if you will.
Yeah, I remember, speaking of 2012, I think it was Rex Ryan's twin brother, Rob, who said, talking about facing Washington, we did a good job against some of the college stuff. And then we went on. And everyone kind of went, what? Oh, my God. And I said, that's where it's based. They implemented stuff that was being done in college at the pro game. There is, I think you said it very well, there's a condescension that people are either think is implied or inferred when someone says college stuff, right? Where, like, I remember, if you're playing in college, you go, that's high school. That's high school type stuff. And you look down on it. You look down on the level that's below you. And maybe that's how he meant it. Maybe that's how he meant, hey, this is kind of gimmicky. My response is pretty much, what else? Let's see what happens on Monday.
I do think he was being condescending.
I do too. And here's what it reminds me of. Like, if I need to lose a little bit of weight, fine if I say that. But when someone that I'm not friends with or not close to is like, dude, you're fat. It's like, whoa, you don't get to say that. We'll say that. We're here. We're in town. Yeah. We're going, hey, here's what they're doing. It's a smart plan. They're spoon feeding. They're running some stuff to make him comfortable. They're getting him easy completions. They're letting him use his athleticism to threaten the defense. We haven't gone down the field yet. Maybe that's coming. That's paraphrasing what he just said. Like, we get to do it. It feels like when your opponent does, everyone's like, oh my God, I wasn't really bothered by it.
Your sister's always late to everything. Okay. Constantly. Never shows up on time. And the joke in the family is, well, she'll be here an hour after it starts. And then for the first time, like, your girlfriend makes the joke, or, one of the in-laws, so to speak.
And then the silverware drops.
It's like, and you're like, no, that's our thing. You don't get to, it seems different when you say it. But yeah, I do think, especially because this is the heel, that the guy trying to play villain on Wednesdays and Thursdays in the locker room when he meets with the media, who went in on Xavier Worthy last week. But I think because he played the way that he did, shut him down, played a big game, and he had the interception of the year. Did you see the pick?
Yeah.
It was a one-handed grab.
Stupid play.
Looked like an Odell Beckham-like snag, basically reaching across his body, outstretched, bringing the ball in with just the one hand. It was a beautiful play. He was the talk of the game. So I think he feels maybe empowered a little bit. But I got to tell you, I've seen a lot of Commanders fans taking issue with his comments or taking offense. And I would say find something else to be offended by. Like, find another thing that someone's saying about Washington to waste your time on. Because so what if it's a college offense? If it's effective, who cares? And through 2 games, in terms of EPA and just moving the football and getting into the red zone and having chances to go get points, it has been very effective.
Yeah, the offense is that they're the largest underdog of the weekend. The offense is that nationally, in everybody's power rankings, they're in the upper 20s. Like, this is, and by the way, I think that's probably accurate. You know what I mean? You want to be butthurt about something that this one didn't raise to that.
I just also think, even in the times where he wasn't trying to be condescending, some of the things he said are correct. Like, I was listening to the Junkies this morning, and somebody had called in and was like, Jaden Daniels has completed 75% of his passes. When's the last time we've had a quarterback complete 75% of his passes? And the Junkies were like, yeah, it's been a while. There wasn't an acknowledgement, though, that he is throwing the ball behind the line of scrimmage at a rate that far exceeds that of any quarterback here, too, which is why they're completing 75% of their passes, which is, again, not a knock. It seems to have worked to an extent so far, and it's what's happening all over the league with how defenses are playing. But that doesn't mean it's not a factor. And that's what Cameron Taylor-Britt was saying. The quote was, he's got a high passing percentage, but it's all short, quick throws. Okay. Kingsbury was asked about this in his press conference today. This is what he had to say about the Taylor-Britt comments on his offense.
A Bengals corner said that the offense here looked simplistic, like a college offense. I'm wondering if you heard that and if you have any thoughts on that.
I did not, but yeah, I mean, he's entitled to his opinion.
I kind of like that answer.
Me too.
Because you didn't take the bait, first of all. And I don't mean from Sam of the Post as much as from Taylor-Britt himself, where you start saying, oh, this isn't a college offense. Here's why it's a pro offense. There's no time for that. You're a grown-up. Someone can say something they want to say that's, in your opinion, if it is, disrespectful. But what I would have said if I was Cliff Kingsbury, and that answer was perfect, is a lot of college concepts in this offense. We just drafted a guy with the greatest college season of all time. Heisman Trophy winner with 50 touchdowns and 4 picks. And we think a lot of the things he did last year are going to work in the National Football League. Oh, by the way, my job right now is to make him comfortable, get him off to a fast start. And we've done that better than anybody else with a young quarterback. So we feel pretty good about some of the college stuff that we're running right now, and we'll see how the Bengals deal with it. But his answer was also perfect because you could hear, just grab his answer, Darius, without the question for me, if you would. You could hear his disdain and his annoyance for the critique from Taylor-Britt, even for the question to an extent. And it was kind of that, I'm above this, I don't care about that question. And it's the right way to do it.
Yeah, like, keep your petty nonsense to yourself. You could say whatever you'd like to say. You could call me names. That's fine. The pressure isn't on because Cam said so. You know what I mean? The pressure isn't on because Cam Taylor-Britt opened his mouth about the team. It's the NFL. There's plenty of pressure on Cliff Kingsbury. Wants to be a head coach again, wants everyone to know that his offense works. Oh, no, the cornerback of my week 3 opponent to criticize my offense or said something condescending about it. I'm sure every opponent every week is going to do something similar, whether privately or publicly. I got plenty of pressure. I don't need that.
This was Kingsbury's answer again.
I did not, but Yeah, I mean, he's entitled to his opinion.
Dismissive.
Yeah. The right way to do it.
Don't have the time for him. I love that. Now, I don't believe for 1 second that he didn't hear the comment. Because even if he hadn't, as of getting ready for that press conference today, the PR staff would have 100% in preparing him for the press conference said, hey, one of the questions you're going to get is about this comment from Cameron Taylor-Britt, who said that you're running a college offense and they don't ask Jaden Daniels to do much, and they're going to ask you about that. And so they game plan, how do we want to answer that? And maybe it was as simple as Cliff saying, I'm not getting involved in
that. I don't need any of that. I mean, you could have answered, well, man, that's tough to hear. We'll still play the game on Monday anyway. We'll still be there to try to beat them.
Taylor-Britt, by the way, might be strategically making this comment too. Talking about, as he would go on, like the lack of shots down the field and some of the ease of the throws and how safe everything is underneath. He's probably wanting to force Washington to prove him wrong in a way. There's a little bit to me of a boxer in the build up to a fight.
Interesting.
Trying to get into their heads a little bit. Knowing you're saying this to all the cameras, it's going to be a story. It's going to be something that's talked about in both markets. So what's the best way forward for you if you're Taylor-Britt is probably to set the trap, put the cheese out there to try to beat us down the field, which so far has not been the strength.
Yeah, I would love for you guys to drop back
of this offense.
Yeah, and do that.
Maybe he gets hit. Maybe you get some sacks. It gets them out of what they've been pretty good at offensively, which is getting the ball out of Daniels' hand and protecting him. But also, we don't know who's going to be the guy to get open down the field. McLaurin's the one guy that's run free a couple of times. But I think the Bengals would probably rather you take those shots to generate the takeaways that Daniels has avoided. Daniels' 0 interceptions to this point is based mostly on not forcing the football. And if you want to go out there to prove him wrong and go throw for 300 yards and light it up down the field a little bit, everything looks different this week, especially the chances they'll have to get their hands on the ball. This is a guy coming off of an interception who's pretty opportunistic on the back end. So I don't know if I'm giving him too much credit for playing chess here, but I think some of it might be if you're going into a fight and you know that their style is like just staying inside and jabbing.
You're like, if I'm going to fight Floyd Mayweather, I'll be like, you know what he can't do is hit me with a haymaker.
Exactly.
He can't wind up and leave himself open and knock me out.
You just call him out for what it is, which I think is what he did. He basically was like, yeah, he's going to run around the ring. I'm never going to land a punch. He's going to, never land anything that's impactful against me, but he'll win on points. That's his game. And if he really wants to get into a real fight, let me know. We could do that kind of thing. And so Floyd Mayweather was the best ever at not taking the bait. He's just like, yeah, he's right, actually. I'm going to do that and win on the cards, and everything's going to be fine.
Every time for a long time.
If you're Jaden Daniels, do you listen? Do you let it get in your head? Do you try to prove him wrong? Or do you just go out and play the much more boring passing game that has gotten you to the point where you're doing better than Bo Nix and Caleb Williams so far?
Well, game script dependent, right? I mean, they'd love to just play their game. I think is that available to you? That means the defense got a couple stops. It means Cincinnati's offense didn't get rolling with T. Higgins looking like he's going to be back in the fold, and Jamar Chase now with a couple of games and some practices under his belt. If they could stop Cincinnati's offense ever and keep this within a score or two, you get the full menu, I think. But if you've got to drop back and spin it a little bit, I don't think it bodes well. I'm hoping that there's at least some modicum of improvement on that side of the football for them, just so we can see some of these things on the offense, because I am not interested in a game right now where they drop back and throw it 40 times and everybody knows.
I don't really know still what the Bengals defense is, because they played an awful Patriots offense, and we saw them last night against the Jets score 3 points and just look ugly start to finish. But they also played, you would think, a good Chiefs offense. The problem with that is that Kansas City does not really look that great yet. They basically are what they were last year, where Travis Kelce's done nothing through 2 games. They lost Isaiah Pacheco in that game against Cincinnati with a pretty serious injury. So now they're going back to the well and kind of figuring out, how do we move the football with somebody other than Rashee Rice catching it? And so I don't know how much the Bengals have been tested, but for what it's worth, so far defensively through 2 games, they are the number 8 defense in yards per play in the NFL. They're number 6 against the pass. They're number 16 against the run, which is where I think Washington might be able to stay in the game and do some damage. That's Jaden Daniels with his feet, but it's also Brian Robinson coming off a career-high 133. That's Austin Eckler, who's averaging almost 5 yards per carry. The Bengals have also been willing to take some chances on the back end. And while they've given up a few plays, like a 45-yard touchdown to Rice. They have the 7th highest interception rate in the league. So this will be the first time Daniels is really going up against one of these all-or-nothing type secondaries where they've picked off about 4% of passes to this point. They haven't been great at getting to the quarterback. They're 23rd in sacks per pass attempt, but they've been much better at generating takeaways. So I'm intrigued to see how that goes.
Yeah, I don't have a great feel for what this defense is just yet. 2 years ago in 22, when everybody was healthy and good, they were nasty. Top 5, 6 in the league in some of the categories, some advanced ones, etc. Last year fell off quite a big deal. I don't know how much of that is chasing games, no Joe Burrow, a lot of 3 and outs. Who knows exactly what it was for them. But early on, as you said, a horrible Patriots offense. They didn't lose that first game because their defense was bad. And, then kind of Kansas City in a bit of a rock fight. I think that defense is good enough to disrupt Washington at times, because I don't think this is a well-oiled machine just yet. I don't think it's as good as it's going to be in a month or 2 months, et cetera. I'm talking about Washington's offense. So to me, obviously I'm looking at Trey Hendrickson, who's got 2 sacks and is a force. They're going to probably move him around a little bit and find some of those vulnerable spots in the O-line, if there are some, to harass and harangue. But, listen, if you can have a similar recipe to what you did this past week, I don't think you get 230 rushing yards again combined, but thump a little bit, get the ball early to Austin Eckler in some space, get a couple of first downs, move the chains. Even if you don't score, just have something where you're moving the football a little bit and you're in the game. I think the longer that happens, the better for them.
He's Danny. I'm Grant. This is the Fan on a Football Friday, getting on the air late today because of the matinee for the Nationals as they lost at Wrigley Field. Although it was good to see Trevor Williams back on the mound as he finishes out his 2-year contract and hits free agency in the offseason. He was very good again, 5 solid innings with 7 strikeouts. And that 420-foot home run from James Wood was a thing of beauty. When he lifts a ball pull side, look out in the bleachers.
Stays hit.
It's coming in hot. And that was a gorgeous swing for James Wood at Wrigley Field on a day where the wind was coming in and nobody lifting the ball was getting it into the seats in right field until he did. All of our baseball coverage, and there was plenty of it today on the Fan, presented by T-Mobile. Switch to T-Mobile, and you can get tons of benefits and still save on every play against AT&T and Verizon. Use their savings calculator to find out how at T-Mobile.com/switch. Speaking of Cliff Kingsbury, you heard from him already on the show. He was asked today about usage for Terry McLaurin, and he blamed himself for McLaurin's lack of production at this point. I want to get into that next, right here on the Fan.
if that one's taken away, that you don't force that one and go to somewhere else. I really respect that about Jaden, of making good processing decisions. Sometimes you have a play design that's, going to go to one place and it's not there. So the worst thing you could do is try to force something in that's not there. And so I'm pleased that we're not doing that. Do we want to get him involved? Man, you bet, in the biggest way. And so the catch and run opportunities, I thought we had, one or two chances that we didn't go his way. One we had a penalty on that I thought on a trap pass. I think Nick might have been down the field on a slant. That was going to be a big place. That one doesn't count as one of the targets to go.
Dan Quinn with the media yesterday. We're Grant and Danny. Welcome back. With a rookie quarterback leading the way, the local football team has a bright future. It's time for you to plan your future as well. The exclusive sponsor of our show, the law firm Condori & Murad, can help update your last will and testament, set up a trust for you and your family. Schedule a free consultation with their estate planning attorneys today. Visit kmlawyers.com. Tell them we sent you to get a discount. That's kmlawyers.com. G&D live all over the Fan, DC, and Richmond in the DMV, and in the capital of Virginia. We're also streaming live on video on the 106.7 The Fan YouTube page. So Cliff Kingsbury today was talking Terry McLaurin as well, because there's no mistaking the fact that while there was progress going from 4 targets to 8 targets, weeks 1 to 2, catches, jumped from 2 to 6, he went from 17 yards to 22 yards. He averaged 3.7 yards per catch.
It's unbelievable.
I'm serious. I don't think I've ever seen a legitimate stud NFL receiver go 6 for 22.
I mean, that's what like Lorenzo Neal in the mid-90s would do. Like a 280-pound fullback, just to show that you were going to throw it to him.
In a bad game.
Yeah.
And he probably wouldn't get 6 looks, only averaging 3.7 a pop, but I get the point. In fact, I was joking about this in the break, but I'm actually dead serious. I would rather not catch a pass than go 6 for 22. Because if I didn't catch a pass, it just means you didn't throw it to me. 6 for 22, that's just an embarrassing kind of yards per catch. And I'm not blaming McLaurin. I mean, it's a situational, complete system-wide failure. But Kingsbury was asked about McLaurin's slow start. Here's what the offensive coordinator had to say today.
Yeah, I mean, defensive coordinators are smart. They're going to try to take him away. There's no doubt. And, that's my job, to find ways to answer that. And so far, I haven't done a great job of it. And, as a staff and me, we got to be better moving forward.
So first and foremost, I appreciate him blaming himself and the candor of saying, I've got to be better.
I was just going to say that. I love that so much.
Sign of a guy that's comfortable in his own skin, who's been a head coach before. Like, I thought that answer was actually pretty awesome.
Agreed, 100%. Because now, who knows? I'm not ascribing anything here, but he could absolutely be thinking, yeah, that dude ain't that good. And it's not worth me bending and breaking every rule of my offense just to try to force feed the guy the ball. He's not explosive anymore. He could be thinking that. He could also be thinking exactly what he said or anything in between. But what you do, the sign of leadership, is you go, I need to do a better job. That's my job, and I haven't done a good job just yet. I love that.
I'll give you a more realistic one than him thinking maybe he's not that good. He could easily say, guys, he was wide open on a play we designed out of halftime. We drew it up on the whiteboard in the locker room at halftime in Tampa. We came out. We got the look we wanted. Everything played out beautifully. Terry dusted a guy, and we missed him. He didn't do that. That would have been a 70-yard touchdown. How much different would his numbers look right now if in week 1 it was 3 for 87 with a touchdown, and then last week was last week? He'd still be in the top 15 or so in the NFL in receiving yards, just based on that one catch. But he didn't mention that. He didn't mention, I had him behind everyone on a post against Tampa where he was wide open when Jaden scrambled. Don't do that. There's no reason to. You don't have to call out the quarterback or the decision-making or anything else. It's just wear it. I got to do better. I thought that was awesome. But what I will say is the first part of that answer, when you tell me defensive coordinators are trying to take him away, this is the one that I never love. When Chase Young's dad called into the radio show that day, people still bring this up to me all the time, by the way. He called in and his point was basically Chase is getting double teamed all the time. Chase is getting chipped all the time, which statistically was not accurate anyway. And I'm not trying to knock his pops, who seemed like a really nice guy and had a very respectable conversation and stayed on the line and was very, very cool. But he was defending his son. I got a son. I would have done the same thing. My point is just number one, that wasn't accurate. Like, he didn't get doubled a lot. But in a world where he did, the rebuttal to that would be, you don't think TJ Watt gets doubled? You don't think
Bet you
Myles
Garrett,
Garrett
he's on the scouting report.
has to fight the chip and the double and the extra attention? If you're really, really good, that doesn't matter that much. And to the Terry McLaurin's getting attention from coordinators point, to get more attention than Tyreek Hill, who found a way to go over 1,800 yards last year. CeeDee Lamb, 1,750. Amon-Ra St. Brown, 1,500. Puka Nacua, as a rookie, 1,485. I'll bet you when teams played the Eagles, they said, A.J. Brown's their most dynamic player.
We should focus on trying to stop him.
106 for 1,456. The Bears last year had DJ Moore and me and you running around at receiver. 96 for 1,364 and 8 touchdowns. Single-handedly beat Washington when they knew all week long he was the guy they had to defend. So my point is, while, yes, I'm sure he's getting some extra attention, one of two things is an easy response to that. A, I'm sorry about that.
Yep.
Now what? Like, figure that out, which he's saying we got to do. Second is, then somebody else needs to be feasting. Who is it? Who's it going to be? And if the answer is, now that Noah Brown's here, we got a guy that can actually do that. You saw it in the second half of the game. Great. Then I'm looking forward to big numbers from Noah Brown. But if he's getting so much attention, which when I watch the games, I don't necessarily see it that way. It's not like he's being doubled constantly. He's actually open down the field from time to time. But let's just hypothetically say that's true. Then there's really no good excuse why De'Ami Brown can't give you something, why you haven't been able to get Luke McCaffrey going, why you haven't been able, pre-Noah Brown in the second half, to really throw the ball to a wide receiver to do anything.
Unless it's not designed to go to those guys. And what I mean is, if we don't know what's being coached, we don't know what's being told to Jaden Daniels specifically. Hey, here, Zach Ertz. Hey, here, Austin Eckler. Hey, here, it's Brian Robinson. They're going to clear some space out. Where's the easiest throw for you? Let's not go broke taking a profit. Or it could be, hey man, let's start to see these things. Let's start to see Luke McCaffrey, who got open on 7 of 8 routes with some good separation this past week. Hey, let's see Terry McLaurin when he's breaking down the field, as you said, a couple times, having beaten some folks. So to me, this is one of those, it's still incomplete. I'm worried. I'll say that I'm concerned that our run of 1,000-yard seasons from McLaurin to start his career here in Washington might be coming to an end. I'm worried that we may not have the same star who was toiling with, the beyond bad quarterback play and mediocre coordinating for all these years. I'm worried we don't have the same thing, but I'm not slamming the gavel just yet. I'm not declaring it over. I am concerned, though, so I'm asking questions. I think it's fair to have a conversation. As we grow in this offense, I'm having something to do with it. As Daniels and everybody else gets more and more comfortable.
Meetings. You and Cliff and Terry and Jaden are going out to dinner tonight.
Yeah, where it's like we're all going to hang out.
You guys going to DC Prime?
Yeah, and I'll be like, what we should do is give the ball to Austin Eckler more. Thanks, guys. I'll you guys pay for the check. You make more than me. But what this offense is now, if everything goes according to plan, and nothing ever does in sports, but if we progress at all, it's not going to look the same in 6 weeks. It shouldn't, right? So if we're still doing this 3 weeks from now, we're going, McLaurin had 7 targets for 30 yards. You're going, oh my God, something is amiss.
So where I'm nervous about McLaurin is less about himself or usage, like how they're deploying him. And it's more about the trend of the offense is that they're not throwing to receivers down the field. Now, it's a very, very small sample. So I'm leaving open the possibility that it's been 2 games and we don't know anything yet. I'm actually hoping that's the case. But the league, on average, targets wide receivers behind the line of scrimmage 11% of the time. That's RPOs, screens, bubbles, smokes, the easy layup stuff. Jaden Daniels is targeting receivers behind the line of scrimmage 38% of the time. So I don't think this is a Cliff Kingsbury thing in the sense of I'm not getting him involved. You can't get him much more involved than they did last week. The first play of the game, they threw a screen to him. They might as well have walked it over and handed it to him. They lost a couple yards. They did it early in the second half as well. He got 8 targets, 6 catches. Neither of those things is bad, by the way. 6 catches 17 times in a season is a 100-catch year. 8 targets 17 times in a season, is basically how much he was targeted last year when they threw the ball every down. Almost 140 targets. The problem is the yards. And the yards, we have not seen him catch just the traditional Terry McLaurin staples very often. He caught that slant with the guy draped on his back. That's what he does. He had one targeted dig where he kind of got hit really awkwardly. I thought they actually could have thrown a flag for, one of those
Crunch hits,
hits in the
sandwich.
middle. And it was one of the only contested throws, frankly, that we've seen Daniels kind of make, and one of the only middle of the field throws we've seen him make. They didn't convert it. I actually loved the idea. I loved the throw, giving Terry a chance. A lot of people will look at it and go, ooh, that was dangerous. I look at it and go, oh, let's do this. More of this, please. This is what the NFL is. But it's been mostly just behind the line of scrimmage, around the line of scrimmage stuff. So if you turn that into 7 or 8 by making a guy miss, that's still kind of the ceiling. That's how you get to a 4.9 yards per reception average. They just got to hit on 1 or 2 of the deep downfield things, and it balances everything out, and they haven't yet.
Right. Yeah, and hopefully it's a yet, as you said. Like, you're hoping that one shot that they took didn't hinder them and say, well, we can't anymore. Or
Well, shouldn't. That shot they took, honestly, should have been, why aren't we doing more of this?
Yeah, just let us know what's available.
And you got one of the better deep ball throwers in America from a year ago who's going to hit on those way more often than he's going to miss them.
Yeah, and, you think to last year at certain points where we're watching Bieniemy stubbornly at times going, nope, this is what we're calling, even as Sam Howell's getting his brains bashed in, where you go, he should be able to do this. He should be able to get rid of the ball. Well, he's not. He's holding on to it and he's getting killed. Stop it. Do something else. Do something else. So you hope we're not getting to that point, right, where in 2 weeks or 3 weeks, they are dropping back, looking to go deep, and maybe this offensive line can't hold up. Maybe Coleman's not quite ready, or maybe Cornelius Lucas has lost a step that maybe he never really had, and Andrew Wiley's not particularly good, or teams kind of figure stuff out. Right now, this is a lower reward, lower risk offense. You know what I mean? And I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that as a 100 level course. Eventually, we got to start getting into our major, though.
But in Baltimore, just as an example, with the Ravens offense, where you've got a lot of the plays that go to quarterback running the football, where you involve the tight end and the running backs in the passing game, similar to what we are going to see here in Washington. They have been talking about a lack of production at receiver forever. And it's always, they don't have good enough receivers, or they got to go get this guy, or, this coordinator, whoever it is, now it's Monken, just doesn't use the receivers enough or well enough. I think that it's just not what they're going to major in. Zay Flowers is pretty damn good. He's not going to go for 1,400 yards in that offense. And I think what we're seeing maybe is that, number one, based on the receiver talent, Zach Ertz show, Austin Eckler and Brian Robinson show, they're going to operate inside out, not outside in. Okay, no problem. And I think while Jaden Daniels likes throwing outside the numbers, that's where your stretch shots are going to be. The middle of the field receiver stuff, which has been nearly non-existent through 2 games, is just not going to be the focal point of this offense. And that's something Cliff Kingsbury will answer to every week, but it's not him. It's not like he's saying, don't throw this. Don't look for this. Speaking of wide receivers who love the middle of the field, T. Higgins is going to play, it sounds like.
Thank goodness.
On Monday night.
Isn't that nice?
So if you were worried about the Bengals offense, which hasn't quite clicked completely yet, not having enough weapons to worry about for Washington's banged up secondary, T. Higgins is going to be back to make his season debut. Let's get into what that means for this game and the injury report on the Commanders side. Thought there were a couple of surprises today. That's next on Grant and Danny here on The Fan. G&D on the Fan. We're giving away those tickets to the HF Festival at Nats Park tomorrow in 15 minutes. Make sure you're listening. We've also got tickets to the Caps 50 Festival on us. We'll do that at the end of the show, right about 6:30 on G&D. Taking a look at the injury report. We'll start with T. Higgins being expected to play for the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, I said this yesterday. That feels and sounds like a big problem for Washington because they've got one of the great receivers in the league, Jamar Chase, who's their vertical deep threat. He can do everything, turn bubbles into touchdowns. He's just explosive. Think Malik Neighbors with more experience and resume, okay? On the other side, you have your more of a Z, like your middle intermediate assassin, boxing people out, using his body, working the underneath stuff. Difficult to defend, toe tapping along the sideline, kind of in that 10 to 20 range. He feasts in T. Higgins. It's an excellent tandem. But Danny, he was holding out almost all offseason. He's been uninvolved with the Bengals, not practicing, not doing anything. I think that getting him back after just a couple of practices, when he hasn't been 100% healthy until the last couple days, could actually not be a terrible thing, as they haven't gotten on the same page yet. You feel like maybe in game 3, Chase is getting closer. Burrow started to light it up with Mike Gesicki. Maybe now you throw another wrinkle into the equation here, and it keeps them from really hitting their stride as they try to add something else into a flawed offense. I know that's a Commanders-friendly look at this thing, but I don't think it's just going to be hitting the ground sprinting with Higgins after he decided to basically shut it down since last fall.
Yeah, a few points here. Number one, if I have a choice between I get to face Higgins' first game back or his fifth, I'll take his first. Right? I think that's intuitive. That's obvious.
No
We've
doubt.
seen that with, guys all around the league. Their first game back, it's maybe not what we thought, et cetera. Now, the other side, there's no better landing spot. There's no better week to get yourself healthy for T. Higgins. If it's grabbing you a little bit, you can wait one more week going up against Kansas City, whose last year's defense was outstanding. Make sure you're right for that Monday night tilt. Get yourself an extra day, rest up, ice up, get yourself on the field against Washington.
He's also going into, this is a contract year. He's been tagged. He's playing on that. He's trying to get paid. He's likely to leave this offseason. And the whole country's watching in primetime. So if you come back against a bad secondary with poor corner play, and you can find a way to 7 for 100, and the Bengals offense is humming on this Monday night, then it looks like maybe you were the missing piece. It could be the best thing for your negotiation that your agent is beginning behind the scenes.
Yeah, and if it's not a big game for you, it's first game back. It's lower stakes there, to your point. But again, this I'd be licking my chops as a 6'4", big-bodied receiver who, as you said, can win in traffic, has great hands, pretty good route runner. You win a jump ball or two, red zone style, or even middle of the field or whatever. All of a sudden, people are going, "Oh yeah, that's right. We could use a T. Higgins."
Football Friday on G&D. Big problem is who covers these guys. Washington doesn't have a corner that they really trust, although I think Benjamin St-Juste was outstanding this past week. Had 3 PBUs, had the peanut punch fumble that he caused that changed the game in the second half. He was limited in practice again today with a groin. So he missed some of yesterday's practice, and he missed some of today's practice. Now, worth noting, Friday for a Monday night is kind of like a normal Thursday. So typically, if you look at a Friday and you see a guy's limited, it means they're going to be super questionable, maybe a game time decision. It's very possible that he and some of these other guys that were limited today could be full go on Saturday. Normally on Saturday, you just do a walkthrough. They're actually going to have a real practice tomorrow, almost like you would traditionally have a Friday morning practice. But St-Juste being banged up is not good because he's the one corner that has shown anything really. I would think Noah Igbenogany is going to start opposite him on the boundary outside, because last week Michael Davis was the first man up with Emmanuel Forbes out, and Davis got benched and really, really struggled. So I would think Igbenogany is the guy, and then you keep Sandra still inside in the nickel. But still, I mean, the Bengals run so much 11 personnel, and they have the best 1-2 punch at receiver that you're going to face early this season and maybe in the league. I mean, Godwin and Evans are close, but I would take Chase and Higgins over those guys.
Yeah, if those guys are right, I'd take Chase and Higgins. I mean, different, obviously. Evans, that physical presence, Godwin, that slot guy underneath. These are two outside guys, although they line people up all over the place. They move folks around, which is a novel concept, especially around these parts. Anyway, but yeah, I mean, Chase is that explosive turbo, can do everything on the field, and Higgins is that kind of classic Mike Williams style, big-bodied, win anywhere, kind of a dude as well. So both have had well over 1,000-yard seasons, and both have been formidable. Again, that's the question every week right now. Who is going to cover these guys? How is it going to happen? Because it hasn't yet.
You know who else, interestingly, is on the injury report? So Cleveland Farrell's got a knee problem. Didn't practice yesterday. Was limited today. Emmanuel Forbes was limited, but we know he's not going to be playing for a few weeks. Johnny Newton didn't practice yesterday. They listed as foot and rest, basically. Limited today, so I would think he's still in line to play a limited number of snaps this weekend. But here's the one that caught my eye. Dorrance Armstrong with a chest problem. I don't know if that's a pec or what that is, but he has not been full go this week. We'll see what happens tomorrow. I mentioned him just to bring up Dorrance Armstrong because this was the biggest move they made other than Frankie Louvu defensively. Dan Quinn was the coordinator in Dallas when he was a rotational end for the Cowboys. He wasn't a starter, really, at any point. Last year, he only started one game. He played in all their games. He had 7.5 sacks. The last 2 years, he averaged 8 sacks per season without starting. And their thought was more reps, more snaps.
Yeah.
This is a potential 10-sack guy on the edge who's going to be impactful. I would say he has been almost not noticeable. There's been a couple plays when you go back and rewatch the game that are nice, but his stat line to this point, he's got 3 tackles. He's at the quarterback 3 times. I just think he's been very, very quiet for someone they paid. It's double-digit millions of dollars a year to. He was the big addition on the edge. If you get very little out of Cleveland Farrell, whatever.
That's a flyer.
They same kind of deal. They took that flyer on
Fowler.
Dante Fowler. But yeah, if those guys don't hit whatever, they need Dorrance Armstrong to be pretty good based on what they paid him.
Agreed. So that's one of those, the kind of signing that I like on paper, which is guy on a good team has a part-time or semi-prominent role. You're not paying him for that. You're paying him for what you think he's going to do. They've hit on guys like that. Pierre Garçon comes to mind, right? The third option in Indianapolis is just fine as our number one. Here, please, and thank you. There's your third down war daddy. The guy's awesome. Armstrong, on paper, to me, made a lot of sense. You already touched on it. Obviously, different surrounding cast, different, teammates, etc. But a guy that was pretty efficient in rushing the passer as a third down pass rush specialist, or only passing downs, playing part-time. He's a guy that profiled. You give him a chance, you may lose something in the run game with him setting the edge, or there may be some things he doesn't do tremendously well all the time. But as a pass rusher, you give him a chance to say, you're not coming off the field unless you want to, unless you're tired. You could look at a double-digit sack season for him. Hasn't really hit the ground running just yet. Nobody really has in that pass rush game, honestly. So, now would be a great time to start. But yeah, that's a guy you're right, they're counting on.
Week 3 got underway last night. The Jets dominated the Patriots, just manhandled them in New York. 24-3 final. The Jets improved to 2-1. Aaron Rodgers was sharp as a tack. Let's look at the rest of week 3, getting started with the 1:00 window on Sunday next. We'll go game by game and predict some Monday headlines. Also, as soon as we return in just a few minutes on The Fan, your chance to win tickets for the final time this week to HF Festival at Nats Park. The event is all day tomorrow. We're Grant and Danny. Congrats to caller 10 at 800-636-1067. You're winning 2 tickets to HF Festival at Nats Park tomorrow. September 21st, Nationals Park features all kinds of great bands. Postal Service, Death Cab for Cutie, Incubus, Bush, Garbage, Jimmy Eat World, Girl Talk, Violent Femmes, Tonic, Filter, Lit. For tickets and more event information, go to thefandc.com/events, courtesy of IMP. We'll be giving away tickets to end the show today to the Caps 50 Fest starring Third Eye Blind. So make sure you're listening in about 20-plus minutes if you want those right here on Grant and Danny. Favorite NFL game of the weekend? I think there's a couple of really, really good ones, Danny. I got it whittled down to 2. Texans, Vikings, someone gets to 3-0. Sam Darnold, Kevin O'Connell, a chance to prove Minnesota's legit. Houston, we already know, is excellent. They're on the road, tough place to go play, indoors in Minneapolis. The other game, though, that I think could be fire, after the way Kyler Murray and the Cardinals played last week against the Rams. And they were sneaky, just a pain in the ass to play all last year.
Mm-hmm.
I made a lot of jokes about Jonathan Gannon, and I think a lot of people did. It seems like he can coach. Eagles have missed him since he walked out the door. The Cardinals are just not fun to deal with. Lions-Cardinals could be telling in the 4 o'clock window on Sunday. Which of those 2 games do you like better?
Lions-Cardinals. I think you're going to see points galore. Both teams are 1-1. Lions kicking themselves after they almost doubled up Tampa in terms of yardage, first downs, and almost every other metric that you'd say would lead you to win the football game, and they didn't. So they need this, and they could very easily, going on the road here, end up at 1-2 through 3 weeks, which is not what we thought. We thought this was the team that was going to challenge San Francisco, who was walking wounded, and they'd be, under 500 through a fifth of the season or whatever. They'll still have plenty of time to recover. They'll be fine, but that would be an inauspicious beginning. So I'm fascinated by that one.
All right, let's do this. Let's go through the games on this Football Friday right now on Grant and Danny and predict the headlines for Monday. So let's predict how this is going to play out. Starting with, at 1 o'clock in Cleveland, the Giants and the Browns. We just saw the Giants. They may have beaten Washington had Grand Gano stayed healthy, but he didn't. Hurt his hamstring on the opening kickoff. So they need to keep their kicker healthy. I get that. Cleveland was really bad in week 1 against Dallas. They were much better in week 2, though. Ended up getting an impressive win. Deshaun Watson had a bounce-back game. My headline come week 3 is Malik Neighbors, the truth. I think Neighbors goes for over 100 in a close football game.
Gross is my headline. Cleveland is 2-1, but do we really care? This is one of those, I think, games that sets football back a little bit. I think this is going to be a sloppy, penalty-filled, turnover fest, everything short of it being in the mud. This is not one of those pleasant, aesthetically pleasing football games that you can count on. I don't think either team is particularly good. I think Cleveland, though, is just a slightly better version of New York.
Bears, Colts at 1 o'clock. Caleb Williams has really struggled through 2 weeks. Indianapolis with Anthony Richardson trying to find some comfort in the passing game.
Yeah.
Need to get a win because they are 0 for the season to this point. But Richardson with 3 picks last week. He'll make the highlight play everybody talks about, but the layups are missed almost constantly. I actually think Chicago wins this football game and gets to 2-1. I think their defense is awesome. And while I don't trust Williams right now, or Shane Waldron, who I've been utterly unimpressed by their OC, as far as I could throw them, I do think their defense will give Richardson big problems. He's not playing well enough for me to trust him.
Headline here is Danny Rouillet is an idiot. I picked the Colts preseason to win that division, and they're going to be 0-3. I'm with you. I actually think Chicago takes this one.
The aforementioned awesome matchup between the Houston Texans 2-0 on the road, Minnesota Vikings also 2-0. The Vikings will be without their lead Mike linebacker Ivan Pace in this game. Jordan Addison is also not playing for Minnesota. They ruled 3 starters out today. Houston hits the road looking to get to 3-0 behind C.J. Stroud. I think they get there. Brian Flores is going to be able to do some things to take away some of the vertical passing game for Houston. The Vikings are blitzing more than anybody. But I do think the Texans will be able to run the ball enough. Joe Mixon's banged up. Not sure if he's going to play or not.
Looks like Cam Akers may get the nod there.
He
that
played
Cam Akers,
in Minnesota recently. Yeah. I mean, that's a revenge game for him, oh, by the way. But I think there's enough defense and pass rush for Houston. They'll be able to turn Sam Darnold over a couple of times and win the football game.
This will be a legitimizer for Minnesota should they do it.
If they win, they're the truth.
They have had a tough opening to the season, and they're 2-0. be pretty damn impressive if they're able to get through that beginning part of the gauntlet. And it'll validate the way that they've gone about it, right? With Aaron Jones and company. And obviously, where their passing game goes through some guy named Justin, it'll come to me. But for Houston, win, lose, or draw, they're for real.
Eagles, Saints, 1:00 kick on Sunday. New Orleans has been the most impressive team in the National Football League. They have scored on every single drive. They're under center more than any other team, 70%. They run more play action shots than any other team. They're the best offense in football, led by Derek Carr, as we all assumed would happen.
I saw that
into
coming,
the season. They are 2-0, trying to get to 3-0. Meanwhile, trouble in paradise for Philly. They won a game where they could have felt good about it. A couple of terrible turnovers from Jalen Hurts in week 1. I thought Hurts was actually awesome in their loss in week 2 against Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
They had that win. They had the game in their hands. And literally, in the case of Saquon Barkley, let it slip through their fingertips. So they're now 1-1. I like the Eagles to go on the road and beat the Saints. This is one of those games where I kind of sometimes will pick games based on, can I see New Orleans being 3-0? You also look at the betting line. You see the odds makers. It's not like New Orleans is a 6-point favorite or 5-point favorite at home or something. They're also seeing a little bit of a comeback to earth. So I'm going to roll with Philly. I think 2-0 makes sense for about what they should be through 3 games. And I just have a hard time believing that the Saints aren't going to run into a wall at some point. Again, they have not punted. They've scored on every possession.
They've been incredible, and they deserve credit for what's gone on through 2 games, to your point. Philadelphia probably should be 2-0. I know that it was, a kind of gross that Friday night game that they ended up winning against Green Bay. But if they made reasonable decisions there in the fourth quarter, we're talking about a 2-0 team facing another 2-0 team. Philadelphia's been a lot less dominant, though. In that regard, I think no A.J. Brown once again this week for them. I think that's going to be a huge factor. I like New Orleans, but it's not one of those games that I feel comfortable betting on, Like, I think not having Brown limits them a little bit, just enough where that easy button is gone. So give me New Orleans in that one at home, but I don't feel great about it.
This is a really fun game in Pittsburgh. Again, 1:00 kick on Sunday for the Chargers and the Steelers. Both of these teams are trying to stay undefeated.
Someone's going to be 3-0.
Now, Justin Herbert's banged up. He's got a high ankle, and he is questionable. Has not been able to get on the practice field in full at any point this week, which is why I'm going to roll with Pittsburgh. TJ Watt can move him off the spot, make him, if he plays, show some mobility and maybe, you hit him a couple times and he's just not going to be the same. If he doesn't play, then I think the Steelers win the game going away because Easton Stick is not going to keep the Chargers in this game. But the formula for the Chargers, Danny, has been hardball ball.
Yeah.
Stay ahead of the game script, man. Have a lead, pound the football. J.K. Dobbins has gone for 100-plus yards with ease twice, has ripped off some huge runs, some explosives for them. But I'm going to stick with Pittsburgh, which would be a really impressive 3-0 for Mike Tomlin and his guys. Russell Wilson was named their starter, hasn't played yet, isn't playing this weekend. Justin Fields, though, protecting the football. You haven't seen those really bad sack fumbles from his time in Chicago. He's getting rid of the ball faster. You haven't seen him throwing a lot of interceptions. They've basically been a ground and pound defensive old school Steelers team. And if that's what they want to be, I got to tell you, man, Fields is going to be harder to defend than Russell Wilson. Even though Fields is not going to do a whole lot for you in the passing game, at least his threat to run gives you a plus trait. I don't think Wilson does that at this point of his career, but that'll be something they got to figure out later on. A big chance, though, for Fields to get his boys to 3-0.
The biggest and most impactful J.K. in this game will not be Dobbins. It'll be J.K. Scott, the punter. He will kick 5 times at least, and I think it's Corliss Waitman in Pittsburgh. He'll kick 5 times at least. This will be a punt fest. Give me the under all day on this. I think it's going to be a pushing contest. I think the Chargers eke it out because I think they're better at that right now maybe than Pittsburgh is. But, yeah, I think this is going to be – if you love good defensive football, tune in.
Lopsided matchup on paper. We'll see if that ends up meaning anything. The biggest underdog in football won outright in both weeks 1 and 2. But the Denver Broncos 0-2 travel to Raymond James Stadium in Tampa, Florida. The Bucs will play home for the second time. Of course, they walloped Washington in week 1. They are 2-0. They're coming back with a win from their on the road impressive kind of survival against Detroit. So they got a chance to get to 3-0 and really should, honestly. Baker Mayfield didn't play all that well. Rushed for a touchdown, was a gamer. They beat the Lions thanks to a strong defensive performance. Todd Bowles is mixing some potions. Mike Evans didn't really do anything, and they still beat Detroit last week. So I kind of think they got one of those wins where you play that game 10 times the same way. You get outgained pretty substantially. You lose a bunch. And when you win, it just feels like you're playing with house money a little bit. Like Jared Goff threw 2 picks, had 2 picks dropped. He was not good in that game. I think they roll Denver on Sunday, and they'll be a 3-0 team everyone starts to look at in a mediocre division that looks like a playoff team.
So this is mirroring what Denver did last year. Remember, they got off to that horrendous start. Everyone left them for dead, and then they were mildly frisky kind of down the stretch. Not overly
I think
impressive,
it'll be similar,
but they were okay.
because their offense will get better. Knicks will get more comfortable. Peyton will figure something out.
Yeah, I think right now is a great time to play Denver. I think everybody who doesn't have them on their schedule is kind of going, damn it, I wish we could make that trip or have them come out to see us. So I like Tampa in this game as well. I don't know that 6.5 gets covered. I'd bet on that, I would say, but I don't trust Denver to do much of anything right now. They're not good on either side of the ball.
Let's go to Nashville. The Packers are playing the Titans on Sunday. It's a potential revenge game for Malik Willis, 1:00 kickoff East time. I say potential because Jordan Love says he wants to play, and he's doing everything he can to play. I don't think he will, especially after they won without him last week. There's a little less desperation. If you're 0-2, maybe you could tell me you're going to rush him back a little bit because 0-3 in that conference puts you big time behind the 8 ball. But worst case scenario, you're 1-2 and he comes back next week, which I think is what's going to happen. By the way, Malik Willis was drafted, developed by the Titans, helped the Packers get a win last week.
Yeah.
And it was the Mona Lisa coaching performance for Matt LaFleur, running what is, and I'm not joking about this, high school football single wing. Like, he completely redesigned what they do. Just a bunch of gadget, end around, jet sweep stuff, bunch of misdirection, like cross buck, wishbone backfield looks. He was in his bag, dude. And he was on the sideline high-fiving people and like slamming his headset down, excited after certain moments. Because I hope this isn't overly disrespectful, but like when you do that with Malik Willis, like you're doing some things. I don't know that he's got 2 of those in him. Here's my surprise pick of the week. The Titans beat the Packers at home. I think you can do the we tricked you with Malik Willis thing once. And without Love playing, if he plays, then I would bet on the Packers. But without him, I say the Titans get their first win. They play a good defensive game, and Will Levis avoids a back-breaking turnover. He's had 1 in each game.
Well, that's the key. And the Titans are favored at home, by the way. So
tells you a lot.
Yeah, so everybody kind of thinks along the lines that you are. I think it's sharp. But Tennessee's been in both games they've lost. It's been the
What
thing
is
you
the
just
line,
mentioned,
by the way?
2.5 on FanDuel.
Okay, so you get 2. So basically, they're a half-point favorite on a neutral site.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're kind of thinking the same thing I am. Like, you just used all your tricks, didn't you, Matt?
Yeah.
You got
There's no
else?
special secret here. So Tennessee, I'm not saying they probably should have won in week 1 against Chicago, but they've been in these games and it's been this, oh my God, what are you doing, Will Levis moment that has undone them, quite frankly, through both of their losses. They're due to have just one break in their correct direction, whether it's a dropped interception or some other kind of screw up, or maybe they didn't even throw something crazy or fumble something crazy. So Tennessee, a winnable game for them to get off the schneid.
The Panthers play the Raiders in Vegas at 4:05, the first of the 4:00 window. Carolina has benched Bryce Young. Andy Dalton gets his first start. He made 1 start last year, and he threw for 300 yards in the outing. I think the Panthers' offense will look a lot better. This is a dead cat bounce spot, maybe, for Carolina. What's the line in this game?
6.5.
I kind of like a Carolina cover. I think Vegas wins the game. They'll just be physical and kind of eventually wear them down and get to 2-1. But I think the Panthers will look way, way more respectable this week with a veteran quarterback getting the ball out and involving some of their playmakers.
100% agree. It's going to look night and day. And I hate that about what's going on there. I feel terrible for Bryce Young, but I think that's the case. A boring, competent veteran, Andy Dalton, will just do what he's supposed to do. Just distribute the rock a little bit. The guys will have a little more pep in their step, knowing that they're not running their routes just for cardio. Shout out to McLaurin. I like the Raiders to win the game. I don't know that they cover, though, with Brock Bowers as good as he's been, Devontae Adams and Samir White. That's a kind of a rough and tumble group that could easily be off to a 3-0 start here.
The Dolphins are at Seattle. Speaking of 3-0 starts, the Seahawks under their new head coach, Mike McDonald, who Washington interviewed for its head coaching job before hiring Dan Quinn, a chance to get to 3-0. And actually, if I could go back to my old Mike Shanahan axiom, it's not who you play. It's when you play them.
Mm-hmm.
Seattle should be 3-0 when this weekend ends because Skylar Thompson is starting for Tua Tagovailoa. And even though I'm not a huge Tua guy, I think most of his success is scheme and playmakers around him related. He was taken in the top 5, and he's still paid $50+ million because of his accuracy, because he plays point guard. He does a lot of things well. They don't really have a decent backup. Like if they were going to Andy Dalton this week, let's say, or Jacoby Brissett, I actually think they could still operate their offense and go have some success. I just don't know that Skylar Thompson is that guy. So give me Seattle to be 3-0, and the Dolphins, unfortunately, lose a second straight. I just hope that we still get to see some of the explosiveness from Tyreek Hill and Devin Achane, because it would be a bummer for not only fantasy owners listening right now, but just frankly football fans. This is a fun offense. I hope they still have some of those big dynamic plays.
Yeah, they're one of the fun watches of the league when it's all humming and going right. I'm a big Mike McDonald fan. That was the guy. If we couldn't get somebody that's a brilliant offensive mind, this was the dude that I coveted and wanted, and he's off to a good start. Now, they haven't beaten the world's most difficult schedule just yet. You got Denver
and the Broncos.
You got Denver and New England on your resume, so we're not crowning anyone just yet, but I think that dude is a coaching star in waiting.
It'll kind of be a fraudulent 3-0. I will
it's a
say,
soft
though,
3-0.
Here's where I'm going to give them a lot of credit. Shane Waldron left. Their new offensive coordinator is Ryan Grubb. Are you familiar with him at all?
The name is familiar.
He was the guy who helped run Washington's offense with Penix last year. And so when the Boar went to Alabama, he hopped up to the NFL and took the Seahawks.
Just right down the street, honestly. Offices,
exactly.
Yeah.
He's been awesome. Geno Smith looks very good, but that offense, getting receivers open, I've been immensely impressed. A lot of stuff, middle of the field, in breakers, digs and stuff that they weren't running previously. DK Metcalf seems to be feasting. So I like what I'm seeing from Seattle for sure. All right, let's talk who's here. The Lions and the Cardinals in Arizona. Detroit's 1-1. Cardinals are 1-1. We both said this is maybe one of the best games of the week. I think for Detroit, if you lose, you're 1-2, you'll get back on track. You're really good. Fine. But this is a show-me game. Last week, one of the up-and-coming teams in the NFC that we feel like might be better than we thought now, Tampa Bay, beat you in your place.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're going to the Cardinals, who just whooped the Rams. Kyler Murray looks good. Marvin Harrison's getting going. If you lose to Arizona, it'll be the second time in a week where a team that feels like they can hang in the conference just bullied a team that's supposedly, outside of San Francisco, supposed to be one of the best of the NFC. I don't know that you want to be 0-2 in those games in the conference to start the early part of the season. So I just think it's a show-me game for the Lions. And if you're Jared Goff, got paid a lot of money, you got to play better than you did last week.
100%. And for Arizona, when I looked at I didn't like them this year. I liked them being frisky and tough to play against, right? And a pain in the butt. And Kyler Murray to have a nice renaissance year, bouncing back from injury, and people to think differently about them. I looked at their schedule and I go, I don't see them being a playoff team. Well, the seas have parted to a degree, right? Who knows? I'm assuming Jordan Love is back when they travel to Green Bay, but maybe not. Look at if there's no Tua when they have to go to Miami. Chicago's maybe not as good as we thought all of a sudden. So now all of a sudden you're looking at this schedule, and what I thought was going to be a little bit too arduous for them to have a winning record, I can absolutely see if they play the way that they've played through a couple of games where they were toe-to-toe with Buffalo. Probably should have won the game, to be honest with you, if Josh Allen didn't put a Superman cape on and beating the brakes off of the Rams. I could see this group being a threat in the NFC to go to the postseason in what we thought was going to be a pretty crowded division. But now that the Rams have fallen off of a cliff, Wile E. Coyote style, the door is open for them.
4:25 kick, nationally televised in the second window. The Ravens and the Cowboys. Baltimore is 0-2. Too early for a must-win, but this is a gotta
It's
win.
close.
Dallas Cowboys are 1-1. They got beat up on by the Saints last week. They don't want to lose two straight at home, obviously. In the case of Baltimore, Kansas City in week 1, you can kind of dismiss. You're there. It's the banner raising, whatever. That was a really bad loss to the Raiders.
Yes.
They led by double digits in the fourth quarter, and the game slipped away. This is a tough matchup. They're not playing very well defensively. Assignment sound on the back end. Now you got Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb to deal with. The Cowboys, I think, are going to be able to rush the quarterback consistently because the Ravens' offensive line's been a disaster so far. Cue Micah Parsons. I don't love the matchup for them. I'm picking Dallas, even though this is one of those games my head tells me there's no way the Ravens are going to be 0-3. And that's coming from someone who said all offseason, they were going to come back to the pack this year, and I didn't love them. I thought they might miss the playoffs. They're better than 0-3, though. Right?
Yeah, I did love them. And that's even baked in a loss on the road at Kansas City to start the season. But
if you had them at 2-1 and they're 0-3, that is a massively brutal
100%,
start. By the way,
especially
you know who's coming up? They've got like the Bills and something else.
Buffalo and Cincinnati.
Cincinnati, right?
Before Washington and then at Tampa, which all of a sudden looks a little bit different than it did before the season. Again,
so 0-3 could be a death sentence.
It is. Yeah, I think now that division may not be as strong top to bottom as we thought, especially because Cleveland's kind of looking pretty middling at best, and TBD on some of the rest of it. But you can't be an 0-3 hole and be one of the classes of the AFC. I mean, maybe you do something miraculous, but it just hasn't clicked just yet. They were in command of that Raiders game and let their foot off the gas, or whatever you want to call it. It's not something you characterize or you think of a John Harbaugh coach team to give it away like that, but they did. They had a couple of horrendous losses last year too, as the best team in the regular season. They lost a game to Pittsburgh that they shouldn't have. But this is an important one for them. They need to kind of get on the right foot here. And for Dallas, after getting their de-pantsed in public, they need to get right too.
On the topic of pretty good teams that are about to start 0-3 and could be cooked, the Rams host the 49ers at 425. San Fran's 1-1. The Rams are 0-2, and they're without Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua, and that's just the beginning of the list for them. I mean, they have all kinds of injuries. I don't know how you couldn't like San Francisco in this spot. What's the betting line
6.5 for San Fran.
Yeah, I have a hard time seeing the Rams winning. Matt Stafford throwing to who exactly?
It's Tyler Johnson. It's Demarcus Robinson. It's more of that than you want.
Not for me.
Yeah.
I know it's no McCaffrey, no Deebo Samuel. I get that. Plenty of injuries for San Fran as well.
No Kittle.
They have more no George Kittle, but they have more to fall back on, right? They've got Brandon Ayuk. Jordan Mason's averaging 100 yards per game. I think it'll be a lower scoring game because of all the weapons missing, but I do like San Francisco 20-13, maybe 23-14, something like that.
That's how it feels to me. Now, this matchup has been great over the years, right? When everyone's at full complement, and it has one of those cliches of the records don't matter. Throw the records out when these two teams play.
Although I do feel like the 49ers almost always beat them.
That's how it feels to me too. But they've had some great games, some great back and forths, here and there and everywhere. And this one feels to me like you caught the Rams at the exact right time. It doesn't matter who you are. If you see the Rams on the schedule, this is the week to get them. Week number 1, they were pretty good playing Detroit. That was one of the games of the year so far. Now, as the walking wounded that you alluded to, San Francisco has a huge advantage. Even though they're missing a bunch of guys, I think they have more than enough to win this game.
I believe Shanahan versus McVay, the 49ers are 9-2 with an overtime win in there.
How about it?
But now it is most recently the Rams beat the 49ers 21-20 in the final weekend of the season last year. I don't know if you count that one because San Francisco was resting some players, I'd imagine. Before that, 8-1. I mean, they have dominated. As you said, there have been some really close one-possession games, but they've certainly had their number, and that's when the Rams have more talent available to them. Sunday Night Football could be interesting. The Chiefs are 2-0, trying to stay undefeated. The Falcons may have gotten some things together in their second game of the year against Philly. That was the miracle comeback. Kirk Cousins leading Atlanta down the field in the final minute of the game for a come-from-behind victory. The Chiefs do a really good job with that cover 2 defense that they used. They were the first team, because they saw everyone doing it with Mahomes to really go, why don't we do more of this?
We should do that.
Cousins has struggled. He hasn't had a lot of looks against teams that do that, but he's been the least efficient quarterback throwing the football against that deep cover 2 look this year. So I think that's a potential matchup issue. I will say that Bijan Robinson running the football theoretically should have a decent day. The Chiefs haven't been able to do anything with Travis Kelce. They just don't quite look right yet. Kansas City should beat Atlanta. But if the Falcons win, what a different story we'll be singing for them with then Cousins' Achilles after they were 0-1 and everyone going, they might be screwed after one game. Then they will have beaten Philly and Kansas City, and they're 2-1 now. It's a whole different story.
Shows you how razor thin this league is, right? If Philadelphia, just for the sake of argument, runs the ball twice with less than a minute 50 to go, you're probably talking about no 2 Atlanta team, and Cousins isn't right yet, or maybe will be. What's happening? Is this coach on the hot seat, or is their decision to do this, that, and the other? Now they got a chance to, as you said, they're only 3-point dogs at home against Kansas City, and this is a winnable game for them for 2 reasons. 1, I think they got some talent. 2, how much better did Kirk Cousins look physically? Because remember, week one, it was like you have to be in shotgun. You're not really planting and driving the football. He didn't look very good early against Philadelphia, but then eventually was under center, dropping back, and looked like himself to a degree. Maybe not 100%, but closer to it. That's a major development for them.
If you watch that Netflix show, Quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
They showed that with Kevin O'Connell, who he'd worked with before in Washington, in like the 3rd game of the season, when he went out and had a bad game and the Vikings got beat, he was being interviewed and he was talking about how uncomfortable he is in the offense still. He's like, I got to know everything to a T, and I'm a perfectionist in this way. I think you're seeing some of that with Atlanta. He's not the kind of guy that's just going to like, we'll figure it out as we go. He wants all the answers right away. And you see they missed some things down the field. One of them, a receiver stopped, but I just think he's not quite completely comfortable in that offense yet. So we'll be very curious to see what happens in that matchup with Kansas City. If they can run it, they'll have a decent shot. Then you've got Monday Night Football, 2 games. We'll be very quick here. The Jaguars and the Buffalo Bills in game 1. Jacksonville's 0-2. They got a Trevor Lawrence problem. He just has not played well to this point. The Bills are off to about as good a start as you could ask for. And the fact that, I hate to say it this way, the Dolphins lost 2 is an even bigger deal for them. The Jets are 2-1, and Aaron Rodgers looks like the truth, and he's healthy. So it's not like it's going to be a cakewalk in their division. We didn't think it would be. But nice landing spot for Buffalo in a home primetime game to get to 3-0 potentially.
Yeah, I think Buffalo will be much better in November than they are right now, and they're already 2-0 because Josh Allen was Superman, especially in week number 1. And Jacksonville just doesn't quite look right. I mean, it looks a little bit broken. You mentioned
for
Trevor
Doug
Lawrence.
Peterson and Lawrence, is this their 3rd year together? Like, that's pretty inexcusable to me.
I think it's their 3rd year,
He completed less than 50% of his passes this past week. Their passing offense was completely out of sync.
Yeah, just it looked like they hadn't met each other or weren't familiar with where everybody was supposed to be lining up and where they're going. And I've been beating this drum for a little while. Like, how sure are we that Trevor Lawrence is great? Tough landing spot being 0-2 here.
Commanders, Bengals, we will be in Cincinnati. No need to make our predictions yet. We've got all of Monday to break that game down. Although I will say, Danny, I'm looking forward to seeing your smiling face sitting in an NFL stadium during a night game. All of your favorite things.
Just a late start, man. They're doing the double dip Monday night thing. Why can't we be the early game?
It'd only be the difference of like a half hour.
Oh, but such a good half hour. So nice.
What do they call him? Plenty of Fun Rouillet, I think it is. Is that your nickname?
Yeah.
Plenty of Fun Rouillet.
I think Circle of Correctness Rouillet is the full legal name.
Caller number 10 at 800-636-1067. Congrats. You're winning tickets to Caps 50 Fest. 2 tickets to join the Capitals, celebrating 50 years of hockey in D.C. Third Eye Blind's performing. They're celebrating the Caps with past and current players on the roster, photo ops, entertainment, concert. Just a really fun day. Tickets are on sale for $19.74 to commemorate 50 years. For more event information, go to thefandc.com/events. Big thanks to Darius for working hard behind the scenes today. For a very short Grant and Danny.
Truncated.
Linnell has overtime coming your way next. If you are playing in, coaching in, heading to high school football around the area tonight, enjoy yourselves. Kicking off a football weekend. Till tomorrow, Vargas.
Ladies and gentlemen, the weekend.